Hollywood has always had its secrets, but what's surfacing right now is darker than anything we've ever seen. With Diddy locked behind bars, survivors are finally speaking, and their stories are naming some of the biggest stars on the planet. From Denzel Washington to Beyoncé, from Oprah to Justin Bieber. The list is terrifying. But the most shocking claim isn't just about the parties themselves, it's about an infection spreading through Hollywood. One that's destroyed careers, ruined lives, and left people wondering if these so-called freak-offs were never about pleasure at all, but about control, disease, and something far more sinister. For decades, Diddy walked around like he was untouchable. His empire stretched from music to fashion to nightlife, and the rumors that trailed behind him were always brushed off as gossip. He had the money, the lawyers, and the connections to silence anyone who dared to speak against him. To the public, he was the flashy mogul who turned Bad Boy Records into a global brand. But to insiders,
Chrissy Teigen, John Legend, Joan Rivers, Rob Saget. Do you want me to keep fucking going?
he was running something far more disturbing. Everything began to shift once the arrests and investigations started piling up. For the first time, Diddy's fortress showed cracks. People he once controlled began to distance themselves, and whispers of what really happened at his infamous freak-off parties grew louder. That's where Ally Carter comes in. Unlike industry insiders who stayed quiet to protect their careers, Ally stepped forward. She wasn't a superstar with millions of fans or a business empire to lose. She was a survivor with nothing left to protect except the truth. And the stories she told ripped the lid off Hollywood's best-kept secret. Ally Carter didn't just describe wild parties or reckless celebrity behavior. What she revealed was far darker. According to her, these freak-offs weren't harmless after-hours gatherings. They were carefully organized events where power, exploitation, and even disease were weaponized against the people inside. She claimed that names most of us grew up admiring were there. Denzel Washington, Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Lady Gaga, Beyoncé. The type of celebrities who project polished, powerful images to the world. Yet behind closed doors, Ally says they were tied into the same disturbing network. And her accusations didn't stop at attendance. She described how young artists were broken down, coded like property, and passed around as if their careers depended on total submission. Some of these codes, she said, were used to control stars like Justin Bieber, Usher, Britney Spears, and Lindsay Lohan, all of whom later showed strange public meltdowns that fans still can't fully explain. What shook people most wasn't just the list of celebrities. It was Ally's claim that these parties weren't just about humiliation or control. They were spreading something far worse, an infection, a sickness that lingered long after the lights went out, leaving careers ruined, voices silenced, and entire lives destroyed. Ally's testimony raised disturbing questions about how such a system could exist. She spoke of codes, signals used inside the industry to identify who belonged to what circle and who could be activated when the time came. To outsiders, it sounded like something out of a conspiracy theory, but to those who watched stars like Britney shave her head or Bieber break down on stage, it felt like missing pieces of a puzzle. The idea wasn't new. For years, whispers of MK Ultra, ritualistic control, and industry handlers had floated around the internet, but Ally's claims gave those whispers new weight. If true, it would mean some of the biggest names in Hollywood weren't just famous, they were trapped inside a system that controlled them, punished them, and silenced them whenever they stepped out of line. Perhaps the most horrifying part of Ally's testimony was the suggestion that an actual infection was being passed around. Survivors spoke of stars who vanished from the spotlight without explanation, or whose careers suddenly derailed after attending one of Diddy's events. To the public, these disappearances looked like bad contracts, bad luck, or personal struggles. But Ally suggested something else, that Hollywood was covering up the spread of a disease. This claim, whether true or not, shook people to the core. If celebrities at the highest levels were exposed, then how far did it reach? And was the silence around these freak-offs really about protecting reputations, or about stopping the truth from getting out? With Diddy finally facing real consequences, more voices are starting to emerge. Survivors who once stayed silent out of fear are realizing the power he held is fading. But exposing him also means dragging some of the most respected figures in Hollywood into the spotlight. Names like Denzel, Oprah, and Beyoncé aren't easy to ignore. And if Ali is even partly right, this scandal could become one of the most explosive Hollywood has ever seen. At the end of the day, much of this remains speculation, but it's speculation backed by survivors who have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Ally Carter's words might be dismissed by some, but the sheer number of names tied to these stories makes it harder and harder to believe it's all fantasy. If Diddy's empire really hid years of exploitation, codes, and infections, then Hollywood isn't just dealing with a scandal, it's facing a reckoning. The question now isn't just who knew, it's who's next to speak.